G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast. Of course, we've been away for a little while, but we're back now, all refreshed. Well, I'm refreshed anyway. I don't care about Macca. I assume he's refreshed because he hasn't had to deal with me for a few weeks. How you going, Mac?
Oh, the wounds have all healed up while you're away, Feen. I'm good,
are they though?
Good.
Very
Well,
good to
I
hear.
must admit that very good that you didn't. You were away for a while. If we had that cast a couple of weeks ago, it would have been a Lulu.
Yeah, apparently, while the cat's away, the wheels just come off. The wheels just come off.
Oh, mate, it was shocking. I must admit, I probably would have been banned forever for being on any social media the way I was feeling.
Look, the good news is that we got things back on track over the weekend with a pretty solid win over GWS. But before we get into all of that, just have to welcome everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube and on Twitter and on Facebook. Fantastic to be back. I did have a nice break, and it's unfortunate that I wasn't able to do much while I was away. My laptop decided that doing a podcast was just more than it was conscripted to do, so never mind. We're back now, and we'll be back for the remainder of the season, and it's really good to be back too. So thanks to everyone who's joined us tonight. Now, Macca, before we get into anything, just have to make sure that people, if you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet done so, please like and subscribe. That would be wonderful. That helps us to spread the word to all parts of the algorithm, which is fantastic. And if you haven't yet, get around our Discord channel. It's a good time. We have, how many have we got in here now, Mac? We've got, let me have a look. We've got over 400 members, 411 members in our Discord channel, which is fantastic. And good banter during the week, great banter on game day, and fantastic banter on the podcast live stream evenings. Where would we be without them, mate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So all that aside, there's a school of thought, I guess, that we would have been better off not winning on the weekend and not winning too many more for the season, but I don't subscribe to that, Macca. I think it was a very good win, and driven by a lot of the newer faces, so which was excellent. What do you think?
Well, I saw the welcome change of form, effort, selection, and execution. It really, it did. The win was a little bit disguised, Feen, in the sense that it relied very heavily on a 7-goal burst in the second quarter, and we were beaten in every other quarter apart from that. So we actually showed what we could do in that 7-goal burst, which was really top effort. We really looked like a side that had magical qualities. But the rest of the game, we did struggle a little bit because the opposition aren't hopeless. I mean, they've got some qualities as well and some very good players. But yeah, the way I saw it is that I was very happy with the result myself personally. I think we did need a win, and I don't subscribe either to the theory that it's going to affect us in our draft picks. I'm sure that some of the games we've got lined up, we're not going to win anyhow. So I think it's impossible for us to be any worse than 5. So yeah. I think it was good to win it.
Yeah, look, I think we're 13th to 15th. I doubt very much, given the form of the sides above us, whether that's going to change too much. The variable's probably St Kilda, but whether it's 15th or 14th, I think is probably neither here nor there. And the good thing about Saturday night, as far as I was concerned, Macca, was the input of the young lads. The team, I mean, injuries are dragging the club kicking and screaming to turning the list over. And, we probably could have done without playing Tex. He didn't look right. But we did get Zach Taylor in, and I thought Zach Taylor in 30 minutes of football showed more than Ned McHenry or Lockie McMurphy has shown for quite some time. So I really do hope that they persist with him. I thought he showed poise, a level head, and the game pace of the game certainly wasn't beyond him by any stretch. So, I think that augurs well for his future. And, then we had a bloke like Sam Berry getting full game time in the middle and making the most of it, where Will Dowling continuing his good form. The back six still looking pretty solid. Mitch Hinge having probably his best game for the season, which was fantastic to see. And then, of course, our stars, Isaac and Geordie, just sharing a half each and really showing that leadership and that class that we need. So, look, I actually thought it was a very good all-round performance. And, yes, they did get us for a little while. I think they put on 5 straight in the second quarter or across the second and first and early second or whatever it was. But we got 7 straight back on them, and the rest of the game was pretty much a bit of a tug of war, Mac, and I felt that we could have easily succumbed to that, and the fact that we were able to hold out and win relatively convincingly in the end, I think, was a really good sign for the young lads.
And I think that's fair. When I made my comments before, it was the fact that we showed, that 7-goal burst, absolute quality football. I mean, if you wanted a template of what your side wanted, what you wanted it to be, we saw it in that 7 goals. And what I was saying with the rest of the game, the rest of the game was the normal struggle you would expect between two sides that, are both struggling a little bit in terms of overall, but as you said, they came hard at us and we withstood it and we got our composure back, and I think that was good too, because usually when we have that situation, we often get rolled over. So, which they did to us last year when we played them. So, yeah, look, there were a lot of things to be very, very happy about. I mean, when you raised Berry, I thought played the best game he's played in our colours. That's just my opinion. And I thought Billy Dowling, he showed that he is very, very comfortable at that level. The 3 you mentioned, of course, were the 3 outstanding players for the Crows. Magnificent half by Rankin and then a magnificent half by Dawson, with Hinge just not plodding along, just starring along with 31 disposals. And overall, I've gone on through every player, and there's only a very few that didn't come up to the standard that we would have liked. But yeah, it was a pretty good team effort, plus those stars.
Yeah, Riley O'Brien, of course, coming back in, Macca. Took some marks, much to the small crowd's delight. And it's annoying, as far as I'm concerned, that he seems to need these mid-season kicks up the backside in order to get him firing again. Obviously, we got Riley Thilthorpe coming back over the next couple of weeks, and whilst you probably wouldn't chuck him straight into the ruck, I wonder whether the answer is moving Riley on and having a year of Himmelberg and Thilthorpe in the ruck with perhaps a recruit or a developing ruckman also on our list.
I'd love to have a quality ruckman, the one that can take a lot of marks around the ground, etc., and be very instrumental in the play. I don't want to really do. We mustn't rush Thilthorpe because of the fact of coming back from his knee. So that won't be this year. You're talking about next year, Fee?
Thilthorpe will be back in a week or two.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily want to see him rucking
No. That's no. I agree with that. I think we should ease him back in. But yes, I'm talking about next season.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too is somebody says in the chat is that there is talk that Himmelberg may leave us, and because he wanted to go to be with his brother last year, and I thought he played a pretty reasonable game this week, and perhaps made himself desirable to GWS. So. It's quite possible that he may leave us. So, ball's up in the air. We'll just see who stays, who goes.
Yeah. I think it's time we moved on from Riley O'Brien. Look, I don't know the people that are listening and yourself, Mac, whether you listen to Matthew Nix's post-game presser. He talked up Riley O'Brien, and he talked up a couple of other senior players. Didn't mention any young players whatsoever.
Yeah, I noticed that.
There's a real mental block at the club with regards to turning over this list, and they just don't seem capable of iterating this list organically. They seem to have to do it when it's forced, and they won't let go of their older players, and Tex should not have been playing. He didn't look right as far as I'm concerned. I know he wants another year. I don't think he's, based on his current physical condition, I don't think he's up for it. We've survived without Tex. We've survived without Matty Crouch. We've survived without Brodie Smith. Rory Laird is still picking up a bunch of touches, but I don't know whether his loss would be terribly missed. What is it going to take for this coaching group to realise that we've actually got a really good bunch of talent coming through, and experience is only required. It's only valuable when it's actually performing.
Well, you're 100% right there, Bean, and it does make me sick too, because I did listen to that after-match speech by Nixie, and I was very disappointed because, I thought he could have given Dowling a mention, for example. Billy Dowling looked very, very comfortable at that level, and I thought he played a very good game, and what's he played? 2 games, isn't it? And that he just looks comfortable at that level. And as you say, Taylor comes on. I know he only had the 4 disposals and 1 tackle, but give him a full game, and I think he'd go very well. So
yeah,
but I think if I remember right, did he talk up Murphy?
I'm not sure whether he talked up Murphy. I don't think he did. Certainly talked up, obviously, Rankin and Dawson, and deservedly so, but I just, they're playing edits of Riley O'Brien's first half at half time. Come on.
Yeah, just as an interesting thing there, I noticed that Smith got probably the best player possibly in the 2s. We don't want him back in the A's. And do you think they'll keep him in the 2 deliberately so that he can't trigger his next year?
Well, it's difficult to say, Macca, because, for all intents and purposes, they played him when they shouldn't have played him earlier in the season. So they had plenty of opportunity not to play him and trigger a contract extension when he was out of form. I'm not really too worried about the contract trigger. I'm more worried about him not deserving to be in the side, and he should dominate the SANFL. He's been playing AFL for 100 years. He should, if he's fit, he should dominate the SANFL, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he belongs in the first.
Well, that's my main concern. Is the fact is I'm hoping that they've got him in the B so that he can't trigger a next year contract, because he has to meet a certain number of games to do that. But my main fear is they'll bring the bugger back in next week when everything's went very, very well without him.
Well, and the cracks are starting to appear, Macca. We've got Sam Berry, who's put contract talks on hold. Now, we're all nice and friendly because I've been gone, so I don't want to get into an argument. But it would be a terrible shame, in my opinion, if Sam Berry was to find another club.
I agree.
At the expense of Matty Crouch, for example, coming back in, or Rory Laird continuing to play in that midfield role. Sam Berry is obviously our next coalface player. He's far more dynamic than either of those two other blokes. He moves the ball forward. He can kick a goal. Sometimes his disposal's a bit off, but for an inside min who you want at the coalface, he moves through congestion well. He's got a strong core. He works defensively. And if he were to move on at year's end, I think that would be an indictment on the list management and the selection policies of this club over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, I 100% agree with you. Having seen the mix that we had in there on the weekend, I liked that mix. I really did like that mix. And he was part of that mix, and I thought he did his job very, very well, because they've got a quality midfield, and we actually won the centre clearances thing. So, we don't normally do that. So, no, I think Saligo, he's got to be in there all the time. I think Berry's got to be in there. I think obviously Rankin in there, Dawson in there. Those players,
Dowling.
Dowling, those players, they're the ones that should be going through there. We don't, and Taylor too eventually, and so we don't need the others. I mean, Laird, I wouldn't be throwing Laird out. He can go back to a half-back flank. He's won 2 All-Australians back there, so he can play on a half-back flank. I've got no problem with that. So, but I did like the mix that we had going through the middle, and it showed, and it worked for us.
That's right. I look, 100%. Mac. I don't want to be too negative because it was a good win, but obviously I'm catching up on a couple of weeks, and we had a couple of really bad losses prior to against Richmond and whoever the other one was, I can't remember. Again, Zach only got a run because of a laid out through Chase Jones. If you go through our debutants over the last year or so, most, if not all, have been as a consequence of injury. And it just and the way that Nick's talks and the way that he highlights the performances of the senior players, I don't know whether he's scared of them. I don't know whether he needs their support in order to maintain his position, or whether he just blindly thinks that those senior players are carrying the load, because I can tell you right now, from a supporter's perspective and looking from the outside, they're definitely not.
Yeah, look, you mentioned the Richmond game. That was just one of the worst efforts I've ever seen from players wearing the Crows jumper. It was just a disgrace, actually. Absolute utter disgrace. And I think possibly one of the lowest points in the club's history, in my opinion. And the pressure from the outside was enormous. It was from the supporters. It was from the press. It was from everybody. They were going to evaluate everything, and over a fortnight. Well, the fortnight's bloody gone. We've never heard a word of anything changing, and maybe there is changes in the background going on that we don't know about, but nothing that we can see. And it just looked like they were forced to play a couple of younger blokes because of injury, etc. And it worked. But from my point of view, what's going to change?
Yeah, well, and the other thing that I found interesting, Macca, while I was away, was the talk of Neil Balme essentially offering his services to Adelaide. And the scuttlebutt that's been going around saying that we haven't even approached him. We haven't even spoken to him.
Well, Rory said it's a little bit more than that he's not going to be approached. That's what Rory's mail was. And which is an amazing situation, because 2 years ago we approached him, and he actually agreed to come here. His nephew actually posted on Twitter that he was coming. But when he told Richmond the next day, because he was still contracted, they said, "No, you're staying here. You're going to fill out your contract." So we chased him. We had an agreement with him, but he was really still bound to Richmond and they wouldn't release him. Now he is available and we're not going to go near him. I just don't get it.
I don't either. My own personal view, because he's stated, obviously because of his health issues and his age, that he wouldn't want a full-time role. He's actually the perfect replacement on the board, Macca. He's Mark Rasciuto's replacement. Mark Rasciuto's got to relinquish his board position, I think, early next year. And to me, Neil Balme would be the obvious replacement to sit on the board and be footy director. He can then consult a couple of days a week, 10 board meetings. He'd be a fantastic font of football knowledge on a board that is otherwise devoid of knowledge in the football space and experience in the football space. And if I was Johnny Olsen, I would be all over it. And I just wonder what those at the football club are so afraid of that they wouldn't even consider having someone of his stature amongst them to help guide them.
Well, I'm in the same boat as you. When I heard Rory say that he's had it on good authority that they won't even approach him, I thought to myself, I can't believe this, because this guy, success follows him, and he's a quality person in football, and he's the type of person that would tell it as it is inside the club to the people inside the club, and that's, I think, what they're bloody frightened of.
Well, I think so too. I think there was certainly a closing of the ranks over the last couple of weeks that even I could observe from afar, Mac. Everything's fine and everyone's doing a good job, and we've just had a few injuries, and this is, improvement isn't linear, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I just think they've closed ranks around themselves. Now, as we mentioned before I left, you do that in the corporate world and you're just about dead in the water, and I have some very close personal experience of that at the moment in the corporate world, and I can tell you what, it's not productive. And, this nepotism that's going on at the Adelaide Crows at the moment is not the type of environment that breeds success at all. So, maybe we just have to grin and bear it until 28 comes along, Macca, and you and I can get on the board and run the show.
Yeah, I think they'd probably find better people. That's I'll tell you what. At the moment, I got to say, at the moment, we couldn't do worse. We'd be a little bit more open and honest about the whole thing. The interesting thing is, what do you think? The way it's going, it looks like Nick's is going to be preserved. You agree with that?
Look, I think so. I think that they're going to make scapegoats out of a couple of assistants. It's so difficult to judge the performance of assistants because they're not as exposed. Their work isn't as exposed. You don't know how much influence they're having over game day tactics, etc., etc. But it looks to me as if they're going to see out at least this season and probably part way through next season of Matthew Nicks, give him a run with a couple of new assistants, and then we'll see what happens from there. I think
that's what will happen.
Yeah,
I think that's what will happen. I think that he'll stay, and I think the one I think is probably under the hammer would be Burns. He was our defence coach last year, and he's gone into he's become our forward coach, and I don't think he's done a great job at all in terms of that, or hasn't got the response that we should have. Van Berlo in the middle, and we've got and Homps in defence. I just think there are better assistants around. I don't know whether you replace the whole lot, but if we're going to target one, it would probably be Burns, in my opinion. Because to me, he's the closest to Nick, and he's probably giving the greatest advice to Nick. And the
he's the senior he's the senior assistant. In a perfect world, you would move Van Berlo on, in my opinion, because I actually think it'd be very difficult being a forward coach at the moment with the movement and game style that we've exhibited for large portions of the season, Macca. Very hard to be a forward when you're getting that clunky, slow down the line delivery. You know, how are you supposed to set up for that? You need the cattle to be able to clunk marks for that. We don't have that. So I think it would be making Burns a bit of a scapegoat, and I think VB is a big problem, but of course VB is also a favourite son. So you know how we feel about favourite sons, Macca. They go on the bloody payroll and they never leave.
I think there's a bit of truth in that.
Yeah. Arab in the chat asked me who I'd target. I'd really like to have a crack at Dean Cox. I think Dean Cox, having coached under Johnny Longmire for a couple of years, would be an excellent option. You know, obviously as a head coach, I'd love to get Nathan Buckley, but I have a funny feeling that Nathan Buckley's going to end up at Port Adelaide, Mac.
You really think so? They've got... I thought they had their coach in waiting working for them.
Well, the word is that they've cooled a little bit on Carr. That would certainly be in the mix, but it wouldn't be a succession like the Malthouse Buckley arrangement. And I think, I don't know, the pressure that's on Kenny at the moment, and they weren't convincing today, despite Kenny's tears over St Kilda. Wasn't that a big show? Wasn't that a big bloody soap opera, Macca? Oh my God.
Did you hear Kenny saying that he's not going to go easy, that he loves his job and he wants to keep it?
Oh, look, that was the biggest political exercise I have seen for a long, long time. The only time you see people in the public space cry are politicians in Parliament when they want to bloody make themselves look like a human.
Bloody elbow. Oh, bloody elbow.
Or it's not just Albo, mate. All of them cry. Scotty Morrison used to bloody bawl his eyes out, drop of a hat.
Oh, but he was horrible all around.
Yeah, and footy coaches when their job's on the line. And Kenny Hinkley did an amazing job. I think he's going to get picked up next season for home and away. I think he's shown his acting chops.
That was good, wasn't it?
God. It was ridiculous. It actually made me laugh. It made me laugh.
Credit where it's due. He would have made the old ladies cry.
Oh, my God. Anyway, but I think the timing, if Nathan Buckley is putting feelers out to coach next year, and I have a feeling behind the scenes he is, then I think Port Adelaide would prick their ears up at that, being that he's a past player in the Magpies at least, and I think they would love nothing better than to take Nathan Buckley out of the equation for us, and I think we'd be stupid enough to let them.
Yeah, I agree with both those comments.
Yeah. So, look, anyway, let's not get too bogged down in that because we did have a very good win. And before we discuss that win, Macca, of course, the way you carry on, we need to give you your bloody 15 minutes of fame as well. So why don't we go ahead and do that, shall we?
Why not?
All right. And first up, it was the Lions breaking Melbourne's hearts to the tune of 5 points. The Lions 11-20, 86 to Melbourne 11-15, 81. Melbourne just going at the moment.
They are. Brisbane got on top in the first quarter, but Melbourne did have a good run in the second and third quarters. But or second quarter in particular, Brisbane fought their way back, and it was just a situation where it got down to really a game being decided by a free kick by Neil, and in my opinion, a correct free kick this time, with Neil Bullen, I believe, diving over the line with the ball for a deliberate out of bounds, and that cost a goal, which cost the game. But yeah, Melbourne are a struggling team at the moment, and Brisbane, they're not quite Brisbane of last year, but they are improving, and they're starting to, they've strung a few wins together now.
I think the issue I've probably got with Brisbane is that they need all their good players performing, Mac. as soon as you hold one or two of them, they don't have a lot of depth, in my opinion.
Well, then
so I don't
their
know.
their midfield was good and it really fired. Duncan was outstanding. Neil and what's the other lad? Can't remember his name, but
starts with a H.
It doesn't matter. He goes good.
Yeah. No, they did it right. And then we had a real struggle between North and the Bulldogs. North not going away, a pretty low-scoring scrap, 11-11, 77 Western Bulldogs to 9-6, 60 North. Dogs by 17 in the end.
Yeah, I think we got a couple of things out of that game. 35 disposals by Bontempelli. He's just an outstanding individual. I'd love to have a player like that in the Crows. We don't have that type of player in our club at all. It's just that big, huge mid that can do anything. That was the first thing. The second thing, I just think that while North Melbourne got beaten, they didn't get beaten by all that much. I think it was 17-point margin, and they've got a lot of young players on the rise. Zeri and Ruck is probably rucking as the best of any ruckman in the competition at the moment, and they've got a lot of young blokes coming up, and they've got a future.
I think they're just starting to move along, Mac, aren't they? North, just over the last month, a little bit. I mean, they're certainly not setting the world on fire, but just starting to move along. If they can keep their midfield together, the one that I wouldn't mind prizing out of North Melbourne is Will Phillips. Actually, I mean LDU, etc. Obviously, they're stars. But I really wouldn't mind having a crack at Will Phillips. He's had an interrupted start to his career with glandular fever, but I reckon, you don't go number 2 for nothing. And
he goes well.
I wouldn't mind having a crack at him.
Yeah, I'm with you. He'd be a good one to get.
Yeah. We had the Dockers, controversially, and oh my God, what you get the fairy tale shot at goal after the siren to win the match.
Oh yeah, well,
couldn't even.
That was an absolute. It was an absolute thriller of a game. Freo, well, I'll leave the ends for the thing, but Freo they got a good lead, and they've got a very good midfield too, and they did very well. They tagged both Heaney and Gilden and kept them very, very quiet in the first half. But then, obviously, Gilden in particular was obviously told to run around like an unregistered dog because he just went everywhere. He was back pocket, forward pocket, anywhere he bloody liked it, and he really had some influence in the second half. And it got to the point where they gradually were whittling away at the Freo's lead, and it got to the situation where 1 point down, and Logan McDonald's got a shot after the siren at goal, certainly within range. He's kicking from about, I think, 40 metres, Feen? About that?
Would have been about 40, yeah. I hazarded to say that even I could have kicked that, or at least made the distance.
Yeah, well, and what he's done, he's obviously nervous as buggery, and when he's running, as you kick a ball, you should be really over the ball and then start the leaning back process, but he's actually been leaning back before he's kicked the ball, and it's just spooned it upwards and sideways. And
it was 1990, it was not a 55-metre kick.
No,
not even close. It was a 40 to 45-metre kick.
Yeah.
And it was inside the arc.
And I reckon nerves got to him. As I said, he just let back. And if you lean back as you kick the ball, you always kick to the right for a start, and you always sky as well. So it was a shocker. Yeah, somebody said he shit his pants.
If he went back any further, he would have fallen over backwards. Anyway, shocker. But Swans, it's their first loss for a while, and to lose by 1 point, not about it. But, it keeps Freo well and truly in the hunt, so good on them. Good on the Suns too. A really, really gritty win. I know it was at home, but still against the reigning champs, 14-17-101 to 13-12-90. Collingwood getting in front in the last quarter, and you kind of thought it was all over. But for the Suns to kick the last couple and get over the line by 11 points, I thought that was a real team-building win, Macca.
Well, they defeated at their home ground this year, I think. That's 8 from 8, I think. And Collingwood, Dacos did some phenomenal stuff in the last quarter, trying to get the Pies up and kicked one outstanding goal, which I think he was involved in about 4 bloody times continuously to get the goal. But the Pies do keep coming. But to Gold Coast credit, their midfield did perform, and they also moved Flanders, who's been soaking everything up in the half back line. They moved him onto the ball in the last quarter, and he did very, very well as well. So, just good luck to them.
He's one I wish we could have got. If they'd have hung on to Jew a little bit longer, because Jew wasn't a big Flanders fan, I reckon Flanders would have been gettable.
No, he wasn't.
As soon as Hardwick came along and obviously liked what he saw with Flanders, that was the end of that. And he's a rising jet, that one.
Doesn't he read the ball beautifully? Absolutely.
Yeah, they've got a very good midfielder. They've got a very good midfield, Macca.
They have.
Rowell and Anderson and Flanders and these blokes, they're a little bit of bite up forward. And I know they've got Taylor out at the moment, but their defence doesn't look bad either. So he's starting to make them play like a football club, Hardwick.
They are. They're playing like a footy club. Just on Lukosius, he's playing reasonable football, not outstanding football. Is he worth a chase or not, Feen?
Look, I get bagged every time I bring this up. He is not coming to Adelaide.
Okay. That's the end of the story. Let's move on.
Well, look, I can't get any closer a source than I've got as 1999
No.
is.
Okay.
And I can only go by what I've been told. Obviously, you can never say never, and money talks, etc., etc. I think if he was to come back to South Australia, I think Port Adelaide would be his preferred destination. I don't think there's a lot of love for Adelaide within that family or the broader family connections. I would be very, 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 very surprised if he ended up at Adelaide, and I actually would be quite surprised if he was traded away from Gold Coast.
Okay. All right, moving on.
All right. Essendon, I think, are the most vulnerable in the top 8, Mac. Their percentage is under 100, and I know that they've been top 4 for a while, but I don't think they've been terribly convincing. Pardon me, and they certainly weren't convincing against the Cats going down by 45.
Yeah, when you think that Geelong went in there with the form of 1 win from their last 7 games, and they also did a couple of strange things. They put Stewart into the middle, and they also tagged Merritt, and Essendon didn't really fire too well at all. And in the end, it was quite a bit of a hiding. I think it was about 48 points or something like that. At the end.
Yeah.
And and you're quite right. On that particular game, Essendon, there's no final. I mean, there's no grand final there. They might finish in finals. I don't know, but I think as you said, they're the most vulnerable team because that was a very poor performance. It was a wet game, and they chose 2 ruckmen too for a start. That's not bright.
I always reckon with the fixture the way that it is, and it's a bit doctored and a bit all over the place, and you got double buys and all sorts of carry on. I think the best indicator of form is percentage, and of the top teams, Essendon's nowhere near it. Surprisingly, we're above 100%. We're at 103 or whatever, which suggests that we're not going as badly as what many of us may maybe think. But certainly, in the top 8, Essendon are the outlier in terms of their percentage, and I think they are if they drop back into that logjam that currently exists between 4 and 12 or 13, then they're going to be extremely vulnerable because of their percentage. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't actually make the 8 in the end.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
A club that does have a player that I wouldn't mind, Rowan Marshall, ended up not being able to put the power away and keeping Kenny's dreams alive. 8-14-62, unconvincingly over St Kilda, 8-12-60, 2 points.
Well, 8 goals each side, Feen. This is an AFL football. 8 goals each side. It's
under the roof.
It's a classic Ross Lyon type of game. It's just a mad scramble. Very, very ordinary standard. And Port was just a little bit less ordinary than St Kilda. As you said, Marshall, I thought, was quite outstanding. But the real difference was that Port Adelaide had Vaughan Francis, who I think was best on ground. They had Rosie, they had Butters. Those three made the difference, in my opinion, in a very, very narrow game. And and then, of course, we had the Kenny episode as well. So I think we've spoken about that. So, yeah. It was a poor standard game, very poor standard game. The only quality in it was the three Port mids.
If ever the coaching crew at Adelaide wanted an example of the fact that shutting down a game doesn't necessarily get you a win, they only need to look at the way Ross Lyon coaches. Because
Correct.
when you only kick 8 goals, the opposition is always in it. Right? Always in it. And that shutdown, lockdown, dour crap that he serves up week on, it must be soul destroying to play in that system. And you're never, ever, ever going to build any sort of percentage. You're not going to have any big wins. You're always going to be vulnerable. And I don't know why he persists with it. It might have been all right, 10 years ago when a lot of teams were playing that way. But in this era where most teams are playing fast attacking footy, kicking 8 goals in a game is just not going to get you anywhere, in my opinion.
I'd hate to play for St Kilda with Ross Lyon. I would hate it.
And then we had Carlton doing a number 61 points over Richmond, 20 goals, 11, 131 to 10, 10, 70. Not much to say against this one. It was a pretty easy one for Carlton.
Yeah, look, Richmond made a bit of a game in the first half. They were within kicking distance if they were good enough. They weren't. They got run over in the second half. Cripps and Walsh outstanding. That's all you need to say. Yeah.
And the last one, the late game, Hawthorn doing an absolute number on West Coast, who looked woeful. 14-10-94, Hawthorn 4-9-33 West Coast.
Yeah, you say that. And it's the interesting thing is that Hawthorn, with their midfielders who aren't classed as top of the range, they absolutely thrashed Kelly, Yo and Rita at the clearances. Absolutely thrashed them. So, West Coast, they've still got a lot of problems. One thing we should have mentioned in the Richmond game is Dustin Martin, 7 possessions. He should retire.
Yeah, I think he might. Because I don't look. Why would you continue playing for? I mean, I know it's his club, but why would you continue playing when really you're 5 years away from any sort of real success again? At the very least, he could go to the Suns to play under Hardwick, but I actually think it might be counterproductive for the Suns to bring on someone like Dusty when they are a young team moving forward. I think they've moved beyond that, don't you?
Absolutely, Pete. 100% would be counterproductive. Making it all about the glory of the man who is a struggler these days. And, I think make the side go backward rather than forwards. No.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be chasing him if I was coach.
No. Let's have a look at the ladder, Mac, and we've got the Swans still on top, 52 points. That's 2 games clear of Carlton on 44. Freo and Essendon on 38. Geelong hanging in there on 36 along with Collingwood and Port. Brisbane in the 8 on 34 points. And then we have a gaggle on 32. Bulldogs, Giants, Suns, Melbourne and Hawthorn now join those clubs on 32. They're having a great year, Hawthorn. considering where they came from at the beginning. Adelaide 10 points back on 22, which makes me, believe that we're not going to go any higher than 14th this year. St Kilda on 20, West Coast on 12. God knows how that happens. Richmond on 8, North Melbourne on 4. I actually think North Melbourne will probably pull themselves off the bottom of the ladder by the end of the season. Mac, I reckon it's Richmond's spoon this year.
Could well be. Because they're pretty ordinary. But yeah. Their glory days are gone.
Yeah, for the time being, but they had a good run. Look, it's an interesting ladder at the moment. There's a lot of contenders. I'm secretly hoping that the Suns get in and get a taste of finals. I think the two sides that are probably most vulnerable are Essendon and Port. And I reckon Gold Coast and either Melbourne or maybe the Bulldogs, if they can stop their schizophrenia for long enough to string some games together, might get in.
Quite possible.
Yeah.
One of those two will definitely get. Well, they both might get in.
Yeah. I would have said GWS earlier, but they're just a little bit hot and cold. And speaking of GWS, let's move on to our game. And it's unbelievable that it's round 16 already. Where's this year gone? But it was the Crows hanging on by 16 points in the end, 13-16, 94 to the Giants, 12-6, 78, a margin of 16. What do we have there? 11 more scoring shots. We wasted the opportunities early, but we had that very good run in the third quarter and managed to hold on. So that was excellent, Macca.
Well, it was. Look, it was nice. If you weren't here for what happened after the Richmond game, and really the rest of the world was attacking the Adelaide Crows, including their own supporters, and quite rightly so. We were disgusted with what we got against Richmond, who are an absolute nothing side, and therefore it was really nice to see the Matchy make a couple of changes, put a different midfielder in there, and which worked, and instead of the slow, clunky midfield we normally have, and. It was nice. It was good to see that 7-goal burst was outstanding. We were just irrepressible during that 7-goal burst, and that's what we're capable of doing with the players that when we put them in the right position to feed.
Well, yeah, and I think as we spoke about at the top of the show, he's been dragged kicking and screaming to that conclusion. We actually look quite balanced, in my opinion, this week by default. I actually would have started Zach Taylor. Why would you promote a kid and debut him on the sub bench? That's got whiskers on it as far as I'm concerned. And when you consider that Lockie Murphy started on the ground, had 9 possessions, of which 7 of them or something were turnovers, and yet he ended up subbing Cook instead of Murphy. I just don't understand, Macca. I just don't understand what the KPIs are that bring him to that conclusion.
Well, he loves Murphy. Absolutely loves him. I don't know if he's got goat pictures or something like that, but yeah. You've got to wonder. He just doesn't matter what he does. He always praises him up, and he always gets selected, even if he goes absolutely shy. So, yeah, I don't get it.
No, I don't either, and it seems to be one rule for one rule for another. So if you have a look at the lineups at the beginning of the game, it did look a little bit more. Our back six looks really good. You actually wonder what's going to happen when Josh Worrell's available. I'd like to see them sneak Nick Murray forward, Mac. If Josh Worrell comes in, I'd love him to have a crack up forward.
Well, he did in. Last year, the year before, he did have one game when he played at centre half forward, and he actually went well. So he was moved during the game, and that might well be on the cards. I mean, Worrell will be certainly come back into the side when he's right. Payne, I think, is doing very well. Butch is a little bit suspect, Payne. They'd say he played well, but he only had the 3 to straight. I
Yeah, but
worry.
he's full back, Macca. You don't care whether he has 0 disposals as long as and like Jesse Hogan didn't do much. I felt Jordan Butts did a pretty good job, and more importantly, I think the three of them work very well together, and I think that's the key.
They do.
I think
they do.
you take Butts out, or if you take Murray or previously Borlase out, or you take one of those three tools out of the equation, and they don't seem to function as well together. And I think Keane, Butts and Murray now have got back into a groove, and I think that really assisted Keane's return to some form this week. So no, I don't share that view on Geordie. I know he doesn't get a lot of it, but he's actually vulnerable when he gets taken up the ground and he's having to handle the ball more. I like him just as a lockdown defender.
Yep. I also like the way that you mentioned those three boys down back. I love the way Hinge went down there time after time to help him out when it looked dangerous. I thought he was fantastic the way he worked. He really, really worked hard, Hinge did. And
Yep.
he'd normally be a 3 voter, except he had Rankin and Dawson going so well. I thought he had a great.
I still would have given Hinge the 3 because I think he played well over the 4 quarters. I think Zach had a half, Dawes had a half, but I think Mitch played well over the 4 quarters, and I would have been happy to give 3 votes to Mitchell this week.
Yeah, well, look, nobody would be upset if that happened. So just as you were doing it, you wouldn't be upset if that were the result. You could argue Rankin was because he was so dominant in that first half. So dominant. And when he wasn't dominant in the second half, Dawson was so dominant. And then he's 10 marks overhead, outstanding under pressure. And really, so each of them was so dominant in their half. Hinge was just bloody good all game. So, yeah, you could easily say Hinge was the best player. But you could easily personally, I thought Rankin was so influential out at the centre and around the ground that I would have given it to him, but I'm not going to argue if you say Hinge.
His clearance work up forward in the first half was incredible. Just about every stoppage, he was the man. It was just like he had the ball on a string. It was incredible.
Incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. Loved it.
So you talk about the back six. They've had Max Michaelani inexplicably up tagging the last few weeks, and I was glad to see him back at half-back. Toby Green did him a couple of times, but by and large I felt like he had a decent game. Toby Green's not the best of form at the moment. But the one I want to really talk about out of the back half, Macca, is Will Hamill, because we'd all written him off, Will Hamill, but I just think he's putting together a pretty decent season. What do you think?
I'm in the same boat as you. I actually got him. I've got a list here of players I was happy with, players that were reasonable, and players that weren't, and he got a tick. I thought he was pretty good, and he has been consistent, and he's got pace, and his disposal is generally very good too. So I'm totally in the same camp as you on Hamill.
Yep. Obviously, the concussions are a concern, but he doesn't seem to be quite as vulnerable to that, or either that or just been lucky this season. He hasn't copped any hits. I think most of us were more fearful for him than anything else, because we all had concerns about his health. But I feel like in terms of a running halfback, he has certainly been a more than capable replacement for Miller, and would make it very hard for Miller to get back in the side at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. He's done well.
Yeah, look, talk to me a little bit about Harry Schoenberg, who was admitted this week. Again, and obviously I couldn't watch as closely over the last couple of weeks as I have been, but it seemed to me that again Harry was kind of played a bit out of position and then dropped. Where are we sitting? I know that Harry's coming back from an Achilles and his fitness base might be a bit down and all the rest of it. Where are we sitting with Harry Schoenberg?
Well, it's not where we're sitting; it's where they're sitting.
No. I'm asking where you see it.
I think he's good enough. I do think he's good enough, but he hasn't got a super edge on him. He's got a. He hasn't come on quite as much as I would have hoped. I mean, look, he did have a setback, and we have to take that into account. But when you bring him in and he's a midfielder and you stick him on a half-forward flank, he's doomed for failures, and we've seen that happen so many times with not just him but Pedler, etc. So yeah, he's being paid. It's hard to say on what his output is. You'd say, well, he's lucky to be in the team, but if he'd been played in the midfield, you mightn't say that because he might have gone well. So I can only comment on what I see rather than what I know.
The reason I ask is that Jake Saligo looked a little bit hampered, and there's a word that he might be carrying a bit of a groin at the moment. And
I believe he.
I know that Jake's had a good run and been playing some very good footy, but is there any point in running Jake? I know he had a break. I think they were probably hopeful that the break might have seen him off in terms of that groin issue, but I don't think it did. He didn't play badly, but he probably wasn't as dynamic as what he's been previously. And I just feel like if you've got a kid that's carrying an injury and had a run of games, etc., and at the beginning of the season you didn't even think he had a tank enough to play in the midfield, why would you drop Harry Schoenberg and keep Jake Saligo on the side?
Well, I can't comment because I don't know whether he has got an injury or not. It certainly wasn't up to the standard of his previous games, Saligo, and because his form has been absolutely excellent. But you could also argue that some of that limelight and some of that ball getting would have been taken away by Rankin's outstanding game. So, look, I don't know. I think Schoenberg's good enough to play and good enough to play in midfield, but he's got to get past Nixon crew and that half forward flank. We at the moment we've got Billy Dowling, Billy Dowling should be getting CBAs, but he's not getting centre bounce attendances.
No, they're playing him on the wing.
But to his credit, yeah, he's adapted well to that, and I've just shown he is definitely going to be a player of the future, and he's done that by not being played in his proper position. So, but great credit to Billy Dowling. But Schoenberg, if you're going to play him in the midfield. Give him a chance.
I agree. The other one is Braden Cook. Now, I'm a fan of Braden's, and I think he's done well, but he hasn't been getting a lot of the ball, again, because he gets played in weird positions. But to me, Braden Cook is just an out-and-out wingman, and that's the end of the story. Forget about it. But they keep playing him up forward, and he's got that. When they play him up forward, I think he suffers similarly to what Lockie Gallant does when they play him up forward, in that he doesn't really have a role. And so, he plays tall, and you've got Fogarty, Walker, and Himmelberg up there. So he does a lot of running for no reward, and I just think it's not the right spot for Braden. And Lockie Scholl's obviously in good nick at the moment, but I'd almost rather see Braden Cook on that wing, just because I want to see him being played in the position that he's probably best suited to.
Yeah, look, the Cook's a bit of a mystery to me because at times he shows absolute class. I mean, real class. He does things that are above the average footballer, but he doesn't do a lot of it. That's probably the one way to describe his situation. Now, I know when you're playing in that forward pocket, half forward flank situation, it is damn hard. And we've got Billy Dowling on one wing at the moment, so I'd like him to stay there at least. And as for Scholl, it would be wrong to drop him at the moment when he's playing well.
It would definitely. He's going all right. I'm more thinking about again with Braden, would it be better for him, like as we mentioned a while back, he had a good run of games, and I was happy that they've kept the faith with him and kept him in the side. They obviously see he's part of the future. But he doesn't get a huge amount of touches, and it mightn't have been a bad idea over the last couple just to send him back to the SANFL and run him through the midfield and ask him to pick up 25 touches. I just... I'm a little bit Harry Schoenberg biased because I've got a lot of time for him, and I think he will succeed at a club. I just thinking that maybe it won't be our club.
Possible. It's possible. I mean, everybody wants to play AFL football. If you can't get a game, that is possible. No, I think Harry's good enough, but just you know what we think of Nix, etc.
Yeah. And the other one down there obviously is Pedler. And I think both Schoenberg and Pedler have been, their early career development has been crawled a bit through various reasons. Both of them, I think, have been asked to play roles that they're not suited for. And then, of course, Harry's been injury hampered, and Luke's probably a little bit short of a full tank. But at the moment, you can't see too many places where they might get included, unless, of course, Lachlan Murphy is treated the same as everyone else in that side and gets dropped on form.
Yeah, get those pictures off him and get him out the team. Yeah, Murphy is actually holding up the progress of a lot of young kids that could play in that position, and we've nominated 3 already. So. It is, well, for some reason, they do love him, and it does hold up the progress for these other lads.
Yeah. Similarly with Luke Nankervis, I feel like his natural position is on a wing, and I think he and Billy are kind of rotating a little bit through the wing spot, maybe with a little bit of shoal as well. The other one, and look, Ben Keys had a really good game, I felt. The conditions suited him, was right up his alley. He worked his arse off, as he always does. But in a premiership team, Macca, you got to ask yourself, is Ben Keys best 22 in a premiership side, or is he fringe/depth?
Oh, no, I think he's worthy to be in the side. A lot of people disagree with me. But he does work his ass off, and he does get. Not many forwards work as hard as he does, and that's the one thing I do like about him. I can see people say he's a spud and a fringe and all the rest of it, but I'm going by what I see. And on his game on the weekend, I thought he was good. If he didn't work as hard as he did, we wouldn't have got a lot of the goals that we got. So, I like his game. If we were a premiership team, well, then he could become a fringe player then, because that would mean we'd have a lot of good players, and then it might be different. But given what we've got and what I can see coming up in the future, I still think he's got a role with us.
Okay, a couple of other mentions before we get into the team stats. One thing that I've been really happy to see develop over the last month, Macca, and it wasn't hampered by Tex's inclusion this week, is the little bit of growth that we've seen in Darcy Fogarty over the last month. And I feel like he's shown now that he is mature enough and works hard enough and is fit enough to take over that Tex role when Tex decides to go back to Broken Hill.
I reckon he's taken some big steps in the last few weeks, Feen. Not even just little ones. He's actually leading and demanding the ball now, as if he is the main man. And I'll tell you what, some of his stuff is very, very good. I know Fog is going to make the grade to what we think he's going to be, and I think once Walker goes, he'll be even better.
Which begs the question, Macca. Which begs the question. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Taylor Walker at this stage, if he's going to continue to play, they should basically be reversing their roles, because it's been my view that Darcy for years has been getting the second best spots to lead to, and getting the scraps in terms of that doing a power of work running up and down the ground. And I think that Tex needs to abdicate the throne in that regard, whether he plays or whether he plays a secondary role up forward, and Darcy needs to be given that forward line to work in.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It should be his forward line and that's what he's doing at the moment. He's actually doing it, whether the clubs want him to do it or not. I've loved his last few weeks, the way he's been demanding the ball, and he's working not just from the square. He's working even as far as up to the wing at times. And you're 100% right. If Walker plays next year, he takes the back spot. Fogg is the man.
So, would you give Tex another year?
Yes. Yes, I would.
On what basis?
On the basis that I still think there's enough ability there to play him. If his back's okay. If his back's not okay, well then no. The answer's no. If he's got it. I just think he's such a big figure in our team. I just think if he's available and if he can still contribute, I'd play him.
Don't forget, we've potentially got Welsh coming in next season, Macca, and I know he'll take a year or two to get up to speed, but we'll have Thilthorpe, Fogarty. You could argue that the ongoing inclusion of Tex has stunted Lockie Gallant's development to the extent where, we may lose Gallant. What I come back to with some of these senior players is that they are not going to be part of our next premiership team. And I know that you need to develop your list, and I know that you have to turn it over organically, and that you need to have some experience up there and all the rest of it. But my personal view, as much as I love Tex and he's been an absolute champion for the club, I think if he plays next year, it'll be a Scotty Thompson situation. He will have gone 1 year too long, and I think he'll demand to be selected when he's available, and I think that would be to our detriment. And I would be leaning very heavily on Taylor accepting the umpire's decision and calling it quits.
Oh, that might well happen. Your question was that if he goes on, would I play him? Yeah, I would. But he might well be.
No, I said no. What I asked you was, would you give him another season?
Well, I still stick by what I said. I would. I would give him another season. I just think he's such. Well, he's a giant within the club, and he's still producing enough. Now, if he can still produce at that level, yes. But I know what you're saying.
I just feel like we're trying to build a side, Macca. Geordie Lewis and Sam Mitchell had games left in them when they left Hawthorn. There's been other examples. Luke Hodges, another one, had 2 or 3 seasons left in him when he left for Brisbane. Jack Gunston's another. There's been examples at other clubs as well. If Tex feels like he can continue to play, then go and let him find a 1 year deal somewhere else. I just feel where we are at, we need to move. Pardon me. We need to move on.
I won't cry if that happens. But personally, I would keep him. But because I don't, because I just don't think we've got immediate replacement for him. But having said that, maybe you don't get immediate replacement if you don't play other people. So.
Well, and I think replacement is a bit of a furphy, Macca, because your forward line doesn't have to look the same as it did when Tex is in the side. Your forward line is fluid, so I mean you play the best people in the best positions, and if that means that we've got Riley Thilthorpe up forward instead of Tex Walker, if that means we've got a Lockie Gallant playing forward if he's still with us. If that means we've got a young Welsh running out of a forward pocket, it doesn't have to look the same. You don't need a Tex replacement. The Tex replacement that we've got is Darcy Fogarty. In terms of a hard-running lead-up forward who can kick accurately, that's Darcy Fogarty. But we don't need 3 Darcy Fogartys. And I would argue that having 2 players that are very similar is actually to your detriment. And I think it's been to Darcy's development detriment over the last few years. And I would like to see us throw up a couple of different looks, to give us a little bit more versatility up forward, to be honest.
Look, and you may be right, I'm copying a bit of flack out there in the chat for they agree basically.
No, it's a very interesting one. It's a very interesting one. I'm a bit torn myself.
Well, on Sloane, I was definitely, I didn't want Sloane to be given another contract. I didn't want Sloane to play on because I didn't think he could contribute. But I still think that if you made Fogarty the made man and Walker the lurker hanging around goals, it could be rewarding.
Yeah. Now, someone asked in the chat, what do you do? What do you do if Fogarty gets injured and there's no Tex? Well, ask yourself that in 2 years' time when Tex is retired. What are you going to do then? You have to come up with you have to have list flexibility. How long do you think Tex is going to play for? I mean, he's only got a year left in him as it is. Yeah. Look at Geelong. They're in a situation where they've got the big fella's just about done, and Jeremy Cameron's 30-ish, 31. So they're going to have to find a replacement, quote unquote, for Hawkins as well. So I mean, I don't think it's just as simple as replacing Tex. I just think it's a matter of setting up your forward line the best it can be, and for as much as Tex has been a heart and soul player, I think a player needs to understand when it's best for the club and for himself to call it quits. And if they can't make that decision, which I suspect Taylor can't make that decision, then you've got to make it for him.
In terms of, if that's the club's decision, I'd be quite happy to wear that. If they say, well, no, we think it's better for the club that he doesn't go on, I'm happy to wear that too. I was answering the question that if I was making a decision, well, I would. But if the club say no, we want to give young lads a go, and it's actually going to hold up our progress of development, well then okay, I accept that as well.
Yeah. Look, Dan Curtin's another one that's very interesting because again, you kind of think, as good as Dan Curtin projected to be in his draft year, and as good as he's likely to be, where do we play him, Macca? Where do we play him? Who does he remove from that back six?
Well, see, I wouldn't be playing him there. I'd be playing him, trying to make him turn him into a tall wingman. That's what I would be trying to do. And I mean, he used to play on ball when he was playing in the waffle. I can't see why he couldn't play on a wing. I saw his first game, and it was terrible what the coach did to him. Absolutely terrible. He put him on Archie, 197 centimetre guy, on a 183 centimetre mobile forward who's got all the tricks in the trade. And you've got a kid playing his first game, 197 centimetres, and you put him in the back line. And you could just see straight away it was a shocking mismatch and a crucifixion of that lad. Somebody said he's too slow, but he was just put in the back pocket, and it was just against somebody where he could not possibly succeed. And the next week, I think he was a sub. I think wasn't he the next week or something like that.
He got subbed off early, and that was it. Yeah. Look, I woke up one morning, Macca, in a dingy, bloody Hanoi pub with beer everywhere, and it stank and all the rest of it. And I had a bit of an epiphany. I reckon Dan Curtin needs to be played up forward.
Well, I'm not against that either, but not playing him down back. That wasn't that. This kid people were going to say no good and all the rest of it. But he did. He was playing in the waffle. He was playing bloody good football. But he wasn't playing as a backman. He was playing on ball, etc. So, or on a wing or whatever. But I just think he just hasn't been given a fair go. When he was given his opportunity, he was crucified. He just crucified, the kid was. And
no. We get all of that. I'm asking your opinion. We're talking about Tex Walker and we're talking about replacements for Tex and blah blah blah. Himmelberg might not be around, etc. 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 Lockie Gallant might not be around, etc. etc. Dan Curtin can obviously play. I think with the back six that we've got and with Josh Worrell coming back in and a couple of other blokes, there's not a lot of spots for him. I think even through the wing, to me, he just lacks a little bit of lateral movement. That he could be getting over his knees still. I'm not quite sure. I'd like to see him playing as a lead-up forward. I'd like to see him tried up forward and given a few games up forward, given the opportunity not to have to worry about playing against someone else. He can run to spots, he can take a few grabs, kick a few goals. I'd really like to see him freed up like that, and give him an opportunity to enjoy his football a little bit. And 197 centimetres doesn't go away, Mac. I reckon, and that's the exact size that we lack up forward at the moment.
I'm 100% in agreement with you, Fane. I'm very happy with that. Just give the kid a chance and play him where he can succeed. I'd be quite happy with that.
So it's a bit to play out. The last one before we move on to team stats is Josh Rachele, Macca. Obviously he's had a few struggles. He's a bit hot and cold. I thought he played a right on the weekend. I'm still, you get hung up on where he went in the draft and all the rest of it. Does he make it as a midfielder?
I don't know. They don't put him there. It's very hard for a guy to develop as a midfielder. He has asked a bit for more CBAs.
Well, he got told. He got told at the beginning of the year he was going to get them.
Hadn't got them. He hadn't got them. So I thought he played very, very well on the weekend. What I did like about his game was the fact that he, when he got his goals, he carried on like a pork chop, which he did when he was at his best, when he's playing his best football early in his career. Like really carrying on with, and was quite excited and happy about it. And he got rubbished about that, and he went into his shell. But that also went to his shell with his football as well. So I just liked his game. I just thought that he worked a lot harder, and he got a couple of goals. I thought he was good.
I think we have a real opportunity with Josh Rachele to prolong Isaac Rankin's career, because as much as Rankin is an out-and-out midfielder, even though the club didn't recognise it until they had no choice but to play him there, I think he is prone to fatigue injuries, Isaac, and I think running Rachele and Rankin through that midfield forward role is the perfect opportunity to give Rash more CBAs, which he excels at. He's a clearance machine when he's around the ball. And, allow us to use Isaac in a very dynamic way. And also, I think Josh is a type of player that the more you get him into the game, the more he gets into the game himself. And I just think rubber banding those two through a midfield role is the way that you use Josh Rachele.
100% agree, Fane. 100%.
Will they do it? Nah, I don't know.
No, probably not.
Anyway, look, let's talk about this particular game, Macca, and have a look at some stats. Disposals-wise, 349 to 387, exactly the same kicks, 217. Giants had more handballs than us. Inside 50s fairly even, 56 to 52. Kingsley commenting on the fact that they could only score whatever it was that they scored from 52 entries. They didn't get a lot out of their forwards, I didn't think. I think our back six did very well. that regard. Disposal efficiency. Theirs was higher, probably because they handball the ball more. Efficiency inside 50, you can see they're 44.2% of the time they scored from entries. We were 55.4, and we could have won by a bit more had we kicked a bit straighter. Free kicks were fairly even. I didn't think the game was officiated too badly. How do you see that?
No. Well, I didn't really notice the umpires very much, Pete. There'd be probably a couple of decisions for the whole game that I probably noticed them. But, yeah, I'd say one of the better umpiring performances. There'll always be errors, and in fairness to them, they're human and there will always be errors. But the fact that I only probably noticed them a couple of times was a good thing. It means that they umpired well, in my opinion.
Yeah. It would have been it could have been a difficult game to umpire because of the conditions, so I thought they did quite well. Credit where it's due. Hit out 37-42, so Briggs did get the better of O'Brien. I thought O'Brien did better around the ground, particularly in the first half. As soon as Nick's pumped him up at half time, he kind of went a little bit quiet, because that's what Riley's like. Clearances, we did very, very well there. Centre clearances 13-12, stoppage clearances 31-24. I think the biggest thing that I noticed about GWS, apart from their little 5-goal spurt, Macca, they just lacked a bit of hunger, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. This is not as desperate a side as it was early in the year. I don't know how they lose it, but they have really lost that desperate hunger. And there were two players, who were absolutely outstanding for them. Whitfield prepared to run all day, and his efficiency with the ball is outstanding. Tom Green, well, he got a heap of the bloody ball, but doesn't use it that well. But they got a lot of players that didn't get a lot of the ball, and they're not desperate enough. If I was a GWS supporter, I'd be pretty disappointed that they are not as desperate as they should be.
Yeah, that group's been together for a while now, that midfield group, and I just wonder whether they've got to shuffle it up a bit. I wouldn't mind betting that we see one or two of those get shaken loose, and the one that I'd be interested in is Perryman, if we could get hold of him.
Yeah, would be happy to get hold of him. And what would he cost? A second?
Doesn't he come up for?
He might be a free agent. Free agent, yes, he is.
Free agency,
he is.
Yeah.
Well, they like that price.
Yeah, so he'd be one I'd be having a good look at, I think. I think he's a hard worker. Finn Callaghan, obviously, 1990. I would have loved him in his draft year, and I think he's really developed, certainly grown in size. But I think he's part of their future. I think that they want to get him more involved. I think he'd be very hard to shake loose. But I reckon you could get Perryman out of GWS at the right price. So that's the one that I'd be looking at. Anyway, back to this. Possessions, 144 contested to 125. That sort of feeds into that hunger argument I was talking about before. I just felt like we beat them up a little bit at ground ball. Uncontested possessions, they did. I felt like they overused the ball, Mac, a bit. They didn't seem to be very direct. Usually with GWS, and it showed when they had that little run, they went very direct through the corridor, but aside from that little burst, they didn't seem to want to take on the corridor too much.
Yeah, and to me, a lot of it when they get the good run and going through the middle, and is generally when Whitfield does one of his passes and run past, gets a handball, and does another one, keeps running through. He can break the lines, and he's very accurate with his kicking, and he did that quite a bit. And I thought he was one of the drivers of all their movements. But I thought our defence did very, very well because some of those attacks that he instigated, the ball was coming in very, very quickly indeed, which is not what a defender likes. So I thought we did pretty well at it, given the fact that Whitfield he would really drive him in.
As much as I hate to say it, I think, and I know that Perryman's an RFA, but often it's better for both parties if you actually do the trade rather than just go through the compensation process. You could probably do something with Himmelberg and Berry to get Perryman across. As much as I don't want to lose Sam, I reckon Berry would be just the type of bloke that they'd want. Just as a bit, they lack a cold-faced player, in my opinion.
But he's unrestricted. Why would you do
No,
a
I don't
trade
think he's
with-
unrestricted. I think he's restricted.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if he's
If he's unrestricted, then no, obviously not. But I was under the impression that he was restricted.
yeah, I think he is unrestricted. Thing.
Yeah, okay. Guyman says they've got Green. I think they'd like to get Green on the outside a little bit more, to be honest with you. I think Tommy Green's a bit wasted. Wasted at the coalface. I reckon they'd like to get him on the outside a little bit more. Anyway.
Oh, well, he's got that big bulky size, though, Feen. That's what
they do. But I think he's also got a bit of class, Mac.
Well, he had.
So, Anyway, it's all hypothetical. Marks 96 apiece. Marks inside 50, 12 to 11 our way. Contested marks 13, 9 our way. I thought we marked the ball pretty well considering the conditions, Mac. Fogg took a couple of nice ones. I was quite surprised, actually. And Geordie Dawson probably got half of those contested marks.
Yeah, well, he took 10 marks, and as you say, a good half or more of those were really strong impact marks overhead with a wet ball. Bloody good work. That was, I tell you what was hilarious, was that when Walker went face down into the wet, and we found out how wet the ground was when he went face down in the first quarter.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like a flood.
Yeah, it was the wettest I reckon I've seen Adelaide Oval.
Never seen it that wet. Never
seen it carry groundwater before. All right, let's have a look at some individual stats. Mitchell Hinge, 31 touches off halfback, as we've mentioned, a standout for him, 17 kicks, 14 handballs, went at 78% disposal efficiency, Mac, which was very good as well. Kicking efficiency, 70%, which is excellent, particularly under those conditions. It had 5 rebound 50s, 1 inside 50, 622 metres gained. It's exactly the type of role that you want Mitch Hinge to fulfil. And if he keeps playing like that, he's going to start getting bloody tagged.
Well, he travelled a lot of ground because he was dropping back and he was also attacking forward. He maybe was best on ground. He was outstanding. It was good.
Yeah, that's certainly for mine best on ground over the 4 quarters. Certainly ranking in the first half was ridiculous. But they tried to block him out, and that's what freed up Geordie in the second half. So, speaking of Zach Rankin, 27 disposals. I reckon he had, 11 in the first quarter or something ridiculous. 20 kicks, 7 handballs, 11 effective kicks.
21 and a half times.
Yeah, but it's his inside 50s, 8 inside 50s, and quite decisive, a lot of them. He gave away a couple of goals that I recall. And he continually gets underrated with this stat, 14 contested possessions, Macca. He gets his own ball. 10 ground ball gets. He spent 82% time on ground again, so they're not trying to hide him. 5 stoppage clearances. Most of those would have been in the forward half, I reckon. Just a fantastic game, but a particularly fantastic first half from him. 9 score involvements as well across the match.
That chest mark he took, Bean, was one of the most talented chest marks I've ever seen, because an average person would never have got it on the rebound. But I watched him, and he actually, when he's doing somersaulting on the ground, he's still watching the ball.
Yeah, it was a back mark, wasn't it?
Yep, he was on his flat on his back when he ended up taking it.
Yeah,
it was
fantastic.
It was fantastic.
Well, it's a bloke who's got an innate football sense, right? He's just a bit of a freak, and we're lucky to have him. Geordie Dawson, 24 touches. Most of those would have been in the second half. Got held a little bit by, what was his name, Belmont or whatever it is, Bedford, in the first half. But as was mentioned, they can't tag Rankin and Dawson in the same game. So as soon as Geordie got off the leash a bit.
Well, just on that particular point, I just think, again, the coach missed a point. When you've got Bedford's about 4 or 5 inches shorter than Buddy Dawson, and in that first half when he was being tagged, it was obvious to me, anyhow, that what you'd do is you'd pop Dawson out on a wing on his own, and Bedford's got to stand in one-on-one. Different ball game when he's out there. It's easy to tag the taggers tag midfielders because there's a lot of other people around, so you can crowd it. But when they're out on one-on-one, it's a lot different thing.
I think Geordie might have taken it upon himself to do that a little bit, because he did start to get out and about in transition. I think in the first half he was almost looking at himself as a bit of a negator, whereas in the second half I think he became more aggressive with his running patterns and put himself in dangerous spots and was taking a lot of marks. So it was a fantastic second half by him. He also had over 600 metres gained, 6 contested possessions, 6 inside 50s, Mac. So that's exactly what you want Geordie to be doing, is delivering the ball into the forward half.
Yep.
Laird, only the 23 disposals, 13 and 10. 10 effective kicks from those 13. 6 inside 50s. A couple were quite good. Nice little pass, I think, to Tex at one point. 423 metres gained. I don't see his time on ground. Time on ground was still 75%. Look, he didn't stand out all that much, but I thought some of what he did was quite good, and some of what he did was the usual Rory Laird stuff.
Yep, that's a fair summary. But I thought overall he was pretty good.
Look, he had 7 score involvements. I think he played all right, to be honest with you. I think he played all right. Benny Keys, just as we mentioned, just a hard-working Benny Keys, 10-11, 14 effective disposals. I don't know how they choose that stat, but continues to work hard. 7 ground ball gets. I thought he was pretty good.
It'd be very hard to stand because he's prepared to run. Where it's a lot of players,
it just doesn't stop, does he?
No, he doesn't just stand in one spot. A lot of forwards that make that mistake of just, I'm a half forward flank on this side of the ground. He goes everywhere, and that's one of the things I do like about him.
Yeah. Sam Berry, 21 disposals, 11-10. Only had 65% time on ground, Sam. So whether there's a concern there or that's just how the rotations went, certainly out of all our midfielders, he by far had the least time on ground. But as mentioned, 5 clearances, did pretty well, Sam. I just like the way he moves through congestion. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with him. Yep.
Yeah, I did like it. He was very direct as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I've liked most about Sam all through his career, is that he runs in straight lines, Mac, and he's strong enough he's got a strong enough core that he can keep his feet in congestion. He can run through a tackle. So he's not going sideways all the time, which is what you're getting from Laird and Crouch a lot of the time. Because they don't have that strength, they tend to go sideways, whereas Berry's more likely to try and drive through.
Which he did.
Lockie Scholl was good on a wing, 11 kicks, 7 handballs, pretty good disposal efficiency. A soft effort early, but then I felt after that he was pretty good. Rash had 15 kicks, 3 handballs. Disposal efficiency continues to be a worry for Rash, only 38.9% disposal efficiency. So he seems... when you get those ultra-talented people and they do things without thinking, he seems to lack concentration on his disposal, Mac, in my opinion.
That's a very, very accurate assessment of it, Wayne, because I was thinking the same thing when I was watching the game, that he's just doing it without really putting a lot of thought into it.
Correct. Yeah. and that might work under less pressure in the twos or in the underage, but under real pressure, it's not that he's being lazy with it. I think he's relied very much on his talent, and I think that he needs to tighten that area of his game up. He just needs to concentrate a little bit more on his disposal.
Hold on.
9 score involvements though, which is excellent. So, and 19 pressure acts, which is very good. So certainly, from a half-forward flank under those conditions, not a bad game at all. Soligo, just a little bit down on touches. I thought what he did quite well. Given that he's supposedly carrying an injury, I'm surprised that he was. So there you go. Him and Berry both 65% time on ground. So maybe it was those two that were swapping. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But I know that Darren Burgess has a philosophy of teaching players how to play with injury and with niggles. But I think my unlearned opinion is that we've got enough cattle in the twos to give Jake a week or two off.
Yeah, well, look, we're not going to win any flags this year, and getting higher on the ladder, that is not an ambition either. There's no real need to do that. What we need to be doing in these last few games is finding out who are the best players to play in our team and the best positions for them to play in. And so I totally agree with what you're saying, Pete.
Lockie Murphy, 9 and 7, 9 kicks for 7 clangers, 33% disposal efficiency, 33% kicking efficiency. I don't want to talk about Murphy. Dowling, 10 and 6. I thought what he did quite well.
Liked his game.
He just shows a lot of poise, doesn't he?
That was exactly what I was going to say. He's up to it because he looks like he belongs there, because he's not panicking. He just plays as if he belongs, and he will belong, and he'll be very good, in my opinion.
Yeah. Of the rest, Lukey Nankervis had 10 and 5 from what I would call limited opportunities. I thought he did quite well. I thought, Elliot Himmelberg is such an almost player. I've said it a few times, Mac. He's such an almost player. To me, he's got high footy IQ. He's pretty good below his feet. He reads the game very well. I just wish he could clunk a few more marks.
Well, spot on. I thought it was one of his better performances, though, for us, actually. There's times when I thought myself, why the hell are they playing this bloke? I didn't actually think that on the weekend. I just thought that he was useful.
Yeah, look, again, I put him in the category of Matt Robin. Matt Robin was a much better player, but in terms of their use to the side, Matty Robin, we always used to play a lot straighter when Matty Robin was in the team. And I feel like Himmelberg gives us that bailout. He just needs to be a little bit stronger at the contest consistently. I think he's improving in that area, but he's not that clunking mark, is he? He's just off that 1%. The difference between a good ordinary player and a really good tall is probably about 1% with Elliot Himmelberg, and I don't know whether another environment, a different coach might change that. You can't say that Berger's no good. He's fantastic below his knees. He's got really good skills and he reads the game really well. His deficiency is that he can't consistently take marks.
That's a fair comment.
Yeah. Look, our defence was pretty good, as we've mentioned. Keane and Hamill and Michael Annie Murray, Butts, all very good. Braden Cook, again, Braden Cook only the 7 touches, 5 kicks, 2 handballs. You either get him in the game or you say, thanks, Braden, you've had a good run. We want you to get some touch in the twos. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, he's
I don't
always
know.
playing fringe positions, Clean, and unfortunately that gets fringe results. And a couple of
Yeah,
things he did was very, very, very good and quite classy. But um, yeah, he's just unless he's played on a wing and given that responsibility, um, we'll never quite get out of him what we could get out of him because there is a little bit of class there, and but unfortunately where he's played, it's a graveyard. It's a graveyard, and it just has been the death of many a good player.
yeah. Arab asked me what I think of Max in the middle. I covered that earlier on. I don't think he's a midfielder's backside. He's out and out. He's an out and out defender. He's wasted in the middle. I still think Max actually has some work to do in terms of his work around stoppage. He got showed up a couple of times by Toby Green, where Green was able just to outposition him quite comfortably. And to me, I don't know what the coach was thinking, trying to turn him into a defensive midfielder, but I hope they throw that one in the bin.
Well, yes, well, I don't know what the coach thinks a lot of times, but having come back to Michael Annnnd, I thought that was good that he actually stood on Toby Green, because Toby Green is one of the real class players in the competition, and I think Michael Annnnd is he's a star in the making, and to have to stand a quality player like Toby Green, who did do him a couple of times. It's good for him. It's good for his learning, because I think he's a smart guy, and I think that he'll learn that this guy did this to me, and okay, I'll have to do this to correct that. So I thought it was great for him to do that. And overall, I mean, I think he did as well as anybody else standing him would have been our side. So as I said, I think it was a win in the sense that Michael Annnnd wasn't disgraced, and he actually had a good learning situation, which will stand him in good stead for his career.
And doesn't take a backward step. He was seen at the end of the game giving Toby a bit of a send off. So
I saw that. Yeah, I did see that.
Doesn't mind it. Doesn't mind mixing it up. So no, I think he's a Ben Hart doppelganger. Basically.
I love him.
And I think that's where he belongs. And I think you don't mess with that. That's just where you play him. Look, just as we have probably 5 or 10 minutes to go, we have 27 in our live studio audience, Macca, on Discord. So if anyone wants to have a quick say before we finish up, then feel free to do so. Also, of course, if you're watching us on YouTube and you feel like donating a couple of bucks to the tin, then go ahead and give us I don't know what it is, a super like or a super chat or some bloody rubbish on YouTube. Go ahead and do that. That would be any contributions there would be more than appreciated. So just winding up, Mac, when you have a look at the team, all of a sudden, when you talk about senior players, we've got Riley O'Brien, Tex Walker, probably put Darcy Fogarty in that class, Lockie Murphy for, shits and giggles, Rory Laird, Jordan Dawson, that's probably your senior players. It's the profile is getting there now through no good planning by the coaching committee, selection committee. We're actually starting to see the profile of the team and the roles played by individuals becoming more what they should have been 6 months ago.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said that leadership group. Well, it is possibly the worst leadership group I've seen, with a couple of exceptions. But you're right, Glenn. I think not through planning, but just through circumstances. We are getting opportunity to see some of the young boys, and we are starting to see a little bit of the future. And I think I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah, well, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, because we will have, a couple of decisions to make next week with regards to certain players. Chase Jones, why was Chase Jones out? What was wrong with him?
Back problems, I think.
Okay, so there's a possibility that he might be back in or available. We also... Sorry, go on.
The one that really, really worries me is Smith. They gave him best player in the twos, and he had, I think, about 30 possessions or something like that. And he'll be hammering away at Nix, and he's in the leadership group, and he was 24 kicks, 2 handballs. As somebody said, probably a lot of those being kick-off and points as well. But he'll be hammering away, and it'll be tested whether Nix has got the backbone to say, well, look, no, I think I'll keep the same side that I had last week.
I don't think it's backbone, Macca. This is the problem. I think it's preference. Right? I don't think it's how Nix would rather have the team set up. Nix would rather have Brodie Smith in the side, and that's the problem. So, it doesn't augur well for someone like Will Hamill, for example, who's done nothing wrong, or maybe a Luke Nankervis. It doesn't...
Well, I reckon in the next year or two, Oscar Ryan's going to be very good for us as well. I think he's showing a lot of promise.
Yep. So, those are the two. Does Zach Taylor continue to get a run on the back of a quarter of really good work, or was he seen as a last-ditch replacement and he'll get a pat on the head and say, off you go back into the twos? Who knows?
I think we know the answer to that, going by history.
Well, unfortunately, I think that's the case. And, it's not going to be an easy game next week. We've got Brisbane up there. And I think that Nix will be looking for experience, and I think that Jones and Smith will be back in the side at the expense of Hamill and probably Luke Nankervis. And Lockie Murphy will retain his spot.
No, you can't drop Nankervis. I mean, he's a staple in the side now. You can't drop him.
Mate, who else are you going to drop?
Well, I wouldn't drop anybody. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I know, but but what I'm saying is that he'll want experience against Brisbane. He'll bring Smith and Jones back in. So 2 will have to come out.
Well, Cook will get dropped. There'll be 1.
Well, you say that, but he's had performances earlier, like during the course of the season, where you could say the same thing, and hasn't been dropped.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about logic here. We're talking about what they'll probably do. I mean, if you and I were doing the selection, we'd drop Murphy, but that won't happen.
Correct. 6 years ago.
Yeah, see, that's the point I'm getting at, because Cook will probably go because Murphy will stay, and so you got to look around who's going to go. Well, probably Cook will go, and Taylor will probably go.
Yeah, I think it'll be Taylor and Hamill.
I thought Hamill's form was good.
It is good. Why would you drop Hamill? Because he's in Brodie Smith's spot. That's the only reason.
All I can say, if I was the coach, this would be staying in the Bs permanently. That he's had his time.
I'm asking you what they will do, not what we would do. Because what we would do, we'd have a different side by now. Well, all I can say is that the side that they put out there won, and it won, and it included Hamill, who played very, very well. There's no reason to drop him. And agreed.
The players that won that game should be rewarded, unless they had a lean game. Cook there, mate, he's vulnerable. So, common sense says if you were a coach, you would stick to the guys that did the job.
Agreed. So this time next week we'll reconvene and we'll see how much common sense dictated proceedings.
Yeah, well, we were really at a disadvantage because we know Murphy's going to always survive, so that defies always logic. So common sense doesn't come in there.
Irrespective, Macca, any chance up there in Brisbane next week, do you think?
No, I don't think so, because I think Brisbane Brisbane are starting to get their act together a bit. They've got a really quality midfield, A grade midfield, and I think that's probably going to be part of the problem. And the other thing too is that Rob always has problems with McInerney. Always has problems. McInerney always doesn't. So I think their midfield's going to have a bit of a ride.
I actually think we're going to give them a bit of a fright. I don't think Brisbane are going as well as what a lot of people think they are. I think they rely on too few. I think our back six is going very well and will make it difficult for them to score. A lot will depend on whether Max can hold Charlie if they decide to play Max on Charlie. I'm not sure about Brisbane's ins because they do have a couple on the sidelines at the moment. And I felt that our midfield functioned very well against quite a strong midfield with GWS last week. So I'm not sure whether we can beat them up there, but I actually think if we continue the form we showed against GWS, we might give them a little bit of a scare. And I don't think it'll be. I don't think Brisbane are going to have it all their own way.
As someone says in the chat, which is it's true. I noticed that Big O was injured and he came off with a sore leg late in the game, so he might not play. If he didn't play, I'd give ourselves a good chance because he always actually thrashes Rob because Rob can't jump, and the Big O's got those long. He's tall and he's got those long arms. He just reaches over him, just taps it wherever he likes. So. If he doesn't play, we're a bit of a chance. But they've still got a very, very good midfield, and they do have a couple of good tall forwards. I'm not saying we can't win, team. I'm just saying if I had to make a selection, I would pick Brisbane.
Oh, I probably would too. I just think it's going to be closer than a lot of people perhaps think.
Oh, and that's quite possible. We might be bravely a brave loser, and I'll be happy with that if that's the case, as long as we've put in a good performance.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like anyone wants to speak to us tonight, Macca, and we've gone our usual overtime, nearly 2 hours.
Oh.
But considering that I've been away, I've missed you all, and I've missed you, Mac. So. I'd hang around a little bit longer.
Well, I hope you took my advice when you were in Bangkok, and if you had any female companions, you checked everything out first.
What are you talking about? I was there to see the sights.
Oh, yeah.
I was only in Bangkok for 3 days. We spent most of our time in Vietnam. Vietnam, by the way, was amazing. I highly recommend it. I don't know whether you've been to Vietnam before, Macca, but we spent the best part of, or just over 2 weeks in Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi and Da Nang, and
would love it.
Probably go back there and do southern Vietnam next year because there's still a lot that I haven't seen. So even hired a scooter, and some of the footage on the scooter, Macca, was hilarious. Because it's freaking chaos in Asia. Freaking chaos.
I'm desperate to go to Vietnam, but I cannot get Mrs. Macca to go because she proved in Singapore she keeps passing out in the heat. She just can't take it.
Yeah.
She's originally from Finland, a cold country, and she just doesn't take the heat.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it was between 32 and 35 every day with about 90% humidity, so it was definitely hot. And Hanoi was absolute bedlam in terms of the traffic. Ho Chi Minh not much better, and then everyone knows what Thailand's like with regards to the traffic. So we hired a scooter for 2 days in Pattaya in Thailand. And there were some hairy moments, Macca, I got to say, but we survived. Oh. Although my compatriot Jeff did have to bribe the coppers because he got pulled over for driving unlicensed. So
it sounds like you had a bit of a ball there, mate.
Oh, mate, we had a great time. It was a very good break. So back to work on Monday, which just makes me sad. Never mind.
How many did you have in the group over there?
Just two of us. We had a mate that lives in Ho Chi Minh, so we visited him for a few days, and then we moved on. Just the two of us, so it was pretty good. Lots to see. Saw all the war stuff in Vietnam, which was very sobering. Kind of made me a bit embarrassed to be there at various stages. It was very confronting, but it is what it is. But the Vietnamese people were extremely friendly, and some of the sites were beautiful.
Yeah, no, I've got Vietnamese neighbours on both sides, and I love them. They're good people.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Bonehilda, those crazy traps, mate, unbelievable. Have you seen them, Macca? I might post a couple of videos on the Crows chat. Some of the traps that the Viet Cong set, brutal.
Well,
but no more brutal than the bloody napalm that got sprayed on them. So tit for tat.
Yeah, it was horrible. It'd be an interesting thing though, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll chuck some on the chat over the course of the next few days. But in the meantime, it's been great to have the cast back together, have the band back together. I thank everyone for their patience while I was away, and it's great to see so many people back on chat, back on Discord, and on the other platforms. So thanks for sticking with us. Hopefully the other podcasts have been filling the gap in the meantime, Macca, because, got to give them some love as well. Here with Crow and Sensible and those blokes, I'm sure they've been ably filling the void while we've been away.
Well, they try, mate. They try.
All right. Well, that'll do us for tonight. They are very good.
They're very good.
No, they are. Look, that'll do us for tonight. Thanks to everyone. As I mentioned, we'll be back at 8:30 next Sunday night for another cast. In the meantime, have a good week, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you then.
Yep. Good night, all.